This conference will now be recorded.
All right, this is the week 3 critique, the Friday edition, and we've got Angela here. So, Angela, Peace Cookies, making good progress. All right.
Thank you.
Couple things, sort of tweaks to make this a little better. You've got a stroke on the type because this is a very light color, and I know that you want to have some separation from the background. In general, strokes on type are a little problematic, but you could make this work if you could make the stroke thicker. I think it needs to be a little bolder, and it also has to be an outside stroke, if you know what I mean, from Illustrator. It can't eat into the font. Let me quickly demonstrate what I'm talking about. So,
Okay, thanks, because I'm not sure. I did thin it out though.
Yes, okay. Here's Illustrator. And because I'm a color theory teacher, I have a bunch of colors up. Anyway, let's just make a new document. All right, so if I have a piece of type, I want to make this nice and big so you can see it. Come on. All right, and pick a nice bold font. All right, I'm just picking a random font. It's not like I'm endorsing this font. Hey, Darren. So I'll make this a color. Now, if I want to put a stroke on this, what I'm going to do is copy it. I'm going to add a stroke, make it a different color for the purpose of demonstration. So this is like a 1-point stroke. So if I go to the stroke palette, you have these options: cap, corner, align, stroke. Align stroke, it could either be in the middle, sort of rides the line, it could be on the inside, or it could be on the outside. And what you want is for it to be on the outside, which with this font, it's not going to let me happen. So what I would do is copying that, I'm going to create outlines of that font. So it's no longer live editable text. Now it's just outlines. And then make this stroke like 10 points. All right, so if you see now, it's eating into the shape of the character so that it makes the character less legible. So if I go to the stroke here and I choose outside, now it's like on the outside of the character. So the character remains, it has its integrity. Now, one thing that's happening is it's sort of overlapping the characters one from another. So because
fix that with kerning.
Yeah, if I copied it earlier, I can paste in front, Command F, and it brings it back. So what I've got here is 2 layers, one with the live type and one with the outline in the background. So you see how that works?
Absolutely.
The type maintains its legibility. It still looks like the original font that it was drawn, but I've got this nice thick outline that helps me separate the background from the background.
It looks a lot better too. Thank you.
All right, so going back to your work, I think you do something, you do not as dramatic as what I just showed you, but something a little thicker with this. I also think the strokes in the cat could be thicker as well. And once you get that, you sort of want to expand all that so it doesn't scale every time you move the logo. And that'll help your logo. As far as the color palette goes, this is pretty good range of hues. I'll be maybe you need a little more value contrast. In other words, light and dark. Most of these, like this is your darkest one.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably equally dark, and then these are all very light. Maybe you need a darker one. You could add another color if you want. But let's see how
I wasn't sure about that.
All right.
So if I add another color, I would just add it to that page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the graphics are working out well for this. The low opacity peace sign it's just kind of not. It kind of is like a weak thing, and I feel like it's just sort of junking things up. You could use the peace sign in some way, but I would use it full strength. If you want color and texture in the background, you could use a gradient fill and use your full strength colors. Don't do a low opacity. When you do opacities like this, then you're creating like, you have your palette and then you have these sort of light colors that are like not really in your palette, and it just gets kind of messy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've kind of been going back and forth, and that's why I was still finishing up my post this morning, is because I just couldn't decide what to do with it, and I wanted to do a couple things, but I wasn't sure about adding colors. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
So, for instance, this card right here, you could make this a solid purple, that color. Make this full strength, this cookie, and that'll pop out of the background real nice, and then change your type to something other than black, and you'll have a nice looking card. You've got the ingredients. You just need to mix them together a little better. So have fun with these colors. These are good colors, and use them full screen. I mean, you could use them full strength. Putting this in the back, it's kind of like a watermark. It's not really a great look, and it just sort of junks up the letter. You could add elements along the bottom. You could create areas of color in your letterhead and give it a little more branded look that way.
What I thought about doing for the letterhead, and I just ran out of time. I had this idea and I had another idea, was to take the cookies and make them different colors from the palette, just on the bottom, very small.
I love that. That's a great idea. Sort of for a little chain of colorful cookies. Yeah, that's a great idea. Do that.
Awesome.
Now, everything you're showing here is a screenshot from the InDesign document.
Yeah.
Just be aware that you can export JPEGs of all the pages, which is something you'll do for your final presentation. And that's a little nicer looking than the screenshots.
Yeah, I just did it real quick, so it would be up here.
You got it. I'm glad you made it. Looks good. You're making good progress, Angela. Keep going.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I appreciate it.
I lost Darren. Tyler's here, though.
Hello.
All right. Tyler, let's take a look at your work.
I wonder if you can hear me again.
What? You didn't do anything new?
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me this time. Okay.
Yeah, I got new headphones.
No, I did a bunch of new stuff based off the critique from yesterday. And I did screenshots too, because I threw mine up there this morning.
Okay. Even if you do screenshots, you can turn the guides off. That makes it a little better. Tyler, you're in my class, right? Yeah.
No, I'm in Penna's.
Oh, Penna. See, you're all my children. I'm trying to get to your work.
Maybe you need to refresh, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
I know. I think I'm above the stone suit mix.
You just refreshed it? I mean, you just put it up?
No, mine's actually after, before lyrics. It was before lyrics, the stone suit mix. So mine's newer. I think mine was the second one. Where am I?
He changed the order all around, so it's newest first. I know you were at the top originally.
Yeah, where? I think, yeah, there I am.
Oh, okay. So this is after or before my critique yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
but this looks different.
Yes,
It
I
is
did a lot
different,
of
isn't it?
different stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
I fixed it.
All right. Great. Your pattern is interesting, and it feels like a kind of echo to the Ukrainian thing that's going on with this brand. So I like that you're using this pattern. What I would say is you could change the colors of the pattern so that it's less contrast. Because like down here, you're using it and you're just sort of ghosting it back so you can put type on in front of it. If you create a color palette for the pattern that is low contrast, then you could put type in front of it and you wouldn't have to change the opacity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I would need to.
So instead of the white background, so you got white, you have this fairly dark kind of orange border, and then a dark orange pieces in there. So from light to dark, it's high contrast.
Okay.
If you wanted to move everything lighter, you could use a lighter version of the orange and brown that is closer to white. You could maybe move the white in, like add some yellow to that and sort of bring the colors closer together, making them less contrasty. And then the pattern would feel more like a little bit of a texture behind, kind of like it's doing here. And you could put type and things in front of it, possibly. You've stretched your pattern here, like it looks stretched, so you don't want to do that. You can also make the pattern smaller within the shape. I'm going to demo that quickly because I think it's pretty useful. So I'll get rid of this. All right. So I have patterns. Let's see, what are we doing? Workspace. I'm just going to create a shape, and I'm going to add one of the stock patterns. My workspace is messed up. All right. Swatches. So this is the Von Glitzka pattern, so I'm going to put that in on the fill of this shape. All right, so if I wanted this to be smaller, rather than edit the pattern, I can go up here to Object, Transform, Scale. When this brings up the dialog box, I have options here. One is transform objects and the other is transform patterns. I just want to transform the pattern without changing the size and shape that it's in. So if I do that and I say uniform like 50%, preview, you see what it does?
Oh, it makes it smaller.
Yes, so my shape stays the same. The pattern is consistent because I haven't changed it in the pattern. It's just smaller, it appears smaller in this shape. So going back to your work, for instance, here, you could do that, make it tighter, smaller. If it was low contrast, it would feel a little better on this card as sort of like a texture.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, when I add the yellow to it, do I add that to the where I put all like the CMYKs and RGBs and Pantones as well? So like whatever new colors I use in the pattern, I have to add that to that page as well?
I would encourage you to do that.
Okay.
It's best practice, yeah.
Should I add those colors?
So when you create a new color to replace the white in the pattern, maybe that color becomes the flood color of the background of the card and the envelope, and it starts to become like a paper color. And then you can use the pattern as a second element. And I think you'll feel happier when you get all that done.
Okay.
You've got, it's kind of like you got all the ingredients. We just got to throw it in the pan and make some sauce. Make sense?
So for the white background on the pattern, I make that yellow.
I would add a touch of yellow. So
Okay.
just to go back to Illustrator, if you look at cancel, I'm going to make this yellow. All right. So that is full strength yellow. That is probably not what you want to do for a background. You'd want it to be much subtler. So if
So
you look here
pale.
at this, yeah, the CMYK breakdown, right now the yellow's at 90%. What if it was 15? And this was, we'll make it just straight up 15% yellow. Where did that go? All right, I didn't have my object selected, sorry.
It's okay.
All right, go here, and I'll just make this 15. I'll leave this cyan 5. See what that looks like? It's just like a nice little paper cream color. And you could play with that. It looks a little green because of the cyan. I would take that out. Maybe add a 5% magenta. It's a little warmer, a little more like, you know, nice paper, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
And then with the pattern,
Yes.
is there anything else that I need to change besides that white background?
Well, I'm saying you should change the orange interior and the brown stroke to be much lighter, closer to the paper color, so that there's less contrast. Now, Tyler, you can experiment with this. So you could try making a whole pattern that's all darker, and you can do one that's all lighter, and just play with them and see which one you like the best, how it works.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
You've done some of the hard work, which is getting this established as a design. Now, just sort of shifting the colors around, not a big deal. And you can try out some different things to see how they work. I have to say I'm not a fan of the big stroke around the business card. I would take that off. And once you get this background color established, then use that here instead.
Okay.
I think you'll start to like the look of everything when that all comes together.
And then I had one more question, but it wasn't about my designs. It was about the mock-up. I didn't know how to place my work into that Photoshop mock-up.
Oh boy. So is there not a video that shows you how to do that?
No.
All right, that's on me. It's pretty simple. It's very similar to the t-shirt mock-up. You have, all right, I'm gonna have to do this right now. This video does not show you, huh?
No. Hey.
Yeah, there it is. So it's right there.
Okay. Okay, yeah, now I see it.
You just have to wait for the end of the movie. All right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Let's find where we were. Let's see. Week 3 discussion. All right, newest first. All right, so Tyler, you feel clear about what you're doing?
Yes, I just need to adjust the colors in my pattern and take off the border on my horizontal card.
Yes, great. All right, I'm going to continue on with the critique. Alicia, Café du Provence. This is a final mock-up. It looks pretty good. It's got some branding to it. You've got a green color and a sort of beige cafe au lait, which is nice. I wish there was a little more color to this, being that we are in color theory. Maybe there's additional elements to the letterhead you could add. You could add a paper color instead of white. I do like the envelope color. Your logo is somewhat successful It's a combo mark, which is a little difficult to work with, but it's working all right. So maybe a little tweaking, give it a little more branding, maybe a little more color. All right, Zoe, blood orange chocolate. So you've created sort of an orange dripping. You've got, let's see, you're still working on color palette. This is a bit generic as a logo. It really should have some sort of Spanish aspect to it. So I would maybe make the drips a lot more prominent. You've still got to work out your final color palette and identity package. All right, Dominic, Cactus Cookies. There's your logo. So this type configuration is a little tough to work with. I would do it maybe underneath big cactus, small cookies. Your template needs to be updated. You still need to do your final color palette and your identity package. So this logo is a bit dainty and maybe could be bolder. When this gets small and used on a business card, it might be hard to see everything. It's hard to tell right at the moment. All right, Romia. Let's see, mint soap. If you notice your logo, you cannot read the type. There isn't enough contrast. It's kind of small. This icon, I would have the type separate from the icon as you've been instructed. That would help. You could establish some additional elements to create the branding in this identity package. So right now you're just sort of using blocks of color and a border where we have a texture, a pattern, maybe a paper color, all the things we've talked about for this. So right now this is kind of minimal work. You really have to think about value contrast when it comes to type. Like this light tan color on white is not enough contrast. So you've got to create more contrast so these things can be seen, and your logo type should be different, bigger, more prominent. All right, Corolla, Monkey Tree. So you're still in the works here. You've got this incredible array of colors and shapes, and your logo is the thing that's just white. So your logo should be more the hero of the show. Right now, I'm not really sure where this is going in terms of identity package design. So make sure you're reading the assignment and understanding it, and establishing your color choices. You don't have to stick with the pentagram. You can use part of the pentagram. You can choose other colors if you want, but you've got a lot of work to do still. All right, Ariel. So brittle brick. So this is peanut brittle. You've got very peanutty colors. Here's your logo. I did a little demo earlier with strokes and type. I think that would be probably useful here. Everywhere where it's black, I would consider maybe using the dark brown color or even a darker brown color. And maybe create some contrast in hue, like you could use a complementary color to orange, which would be blue or something like that. And you have yet to really complete your identity package, so make sure you're getting on that. That should be really the first thing you do. All right, Jade, Shaman Tea. It's kind of hard to see your logo at this scale. I think it needs some contrast. You're really sticking to the same hue with different values. Maybe additional hues are needed to create some contrast in the face and the background. And make sure your logo lockup is working in both vertical and horizontal. It feels like the logo is sort of pulled apart over here on the business card. If it doesn't work on a business card, then you need to rethink it. It should be able to work there. Letterhead, this is kind of a start. You've got the logo, but no additional elements. This is like maybe an arrow. I don't know. Think about additional elements that will help make this a little more branded, and additional colors, because right now you're really only one hue. All right, Farron, Boise beef jerky. You've got a steer with type underneath. This needs some craftsmanship. The centering, maybe Boise is big and beef jerky small underneath. Look at some logo configurations to see what works best. You've got this part done, but you really need to create a color palette and identity package. So that's still ahead of you. All right, Lyric, you're doing stone soup. So as a logo, this could be a little more compact and iconic. I would question the black strokes everywhere. And maybe stone soup is big, mix could be smaller, maybe. You've got a letterhead with a sort of ghosted back icon. Think a little more about color in terms of paper color, textures, patterns, other things that you can add to these elements to make them more branded. Really just taking the icon and making it like a 10% opacity is kind of a very simple idea. I would go deeper than that. You look at your keywords and see what kind of things come to mind. I mean, there could be wood texture. You could have a wood texture in the background. You could have stone texture in the background, something like that, where it has some texture and adds some color to this. All right, off to section 1. John Thomas. John Thomas is doing tortilla jelly beans. All right. So this logo looks like sort of photo, sort of rendered in Illustrator. It needs to be a lot simpler, cleaner. I can't really tell what the back, it looks like the sunset. Needs some color. Sunset is yellow, orange. That would be great contrast to the violet purple color that you've been assigned. So consider how you're adding additional colors that create contrast through maybe complement. You got a tint, you got a shade. So add some more of that. You pulled out the palm trees as a separate element. That's okay. But I definitely feel like you're in monochromatic land and you're in color theory, so you want it to be colorful, especially for this product. Borders, not good for business cards. Borders are not really, I wouldn't really consider that a branded element in this case. Look at your keywords, think what other kinds of things come to mind. You can use textures and patterns and things like that. So when you pull this all together, it is hanging together because you've got this monochromatic palette, but what else could you add? This light color is okay. Just as a thought, throw in some yellow, see how that works. Light yellow is possible as well. All right, Darren, I knew you were here somewhere. You were here a bit ago. All right, Anna. So what you're presenting here, it looks like a very squished version of the Illustrator file. Make sure you're able to place all this into InDesign and give me the InDesign pieces. You've got a good start with your icon. It could be salty dog big and sea salt caramel small underneath. That would make your logo a little easier to work with. And then what color is your paper? Is there a texture? Is there a pattern? What other branded elements can you add to your identity package to pull it all together? All right. Elizabeth, Maritime Soap. This is good use of color. I like the look, the overall look works as a branded look. Few elements that sort of throw me off. I don't know why these bars are here, they're uneven. I would just flood this with blue. You're doing sort of this almost looks like a stripes of a flag, maybe. this leaf vine thing, you could use that as a kind of rule around here. Maybe additional elements, create a texture or pattern with that. So that might work. The big stripes here, maybe this has a wave pattern to it. Think a little more creatively about this. I think you're in good shape. You've got some a sort of branded look going, but you just need to like fine tune some of these elements. So that's it. That's the Friday critique. I can't wait to see everybody's work coming up.